What's up, everybody? This is the Money Maximizers podcast. We're coming at you with a special edition, and we have an announcement for you at the end that some of you might have guessed. But first, we'd like to apologize that it has been a significant amount of time since we released an episode. I think that will all become clear at the end with our announcement. But we have a really special podcast. We have a special episode for you today where we are going to interview Sean. I'm going to interview Sean. This is something that I think we could do in the future in the channel. So we're kind of trying it on with Sean as our interviewee. And I'm going to interview him, just ask him a couple questions and see what he thinks and get his personal perspective on how to maximize money, what he does in his personal life, and what he would recommend if someone were to ask him for advice, right?
Absolutely. That's what we're doing today.
You excited?
I'm very excited.
All right, we're excited. So let's start. The first question I have is, a lot of every financial guru or financial, not even a guru, but thinks they're a guru, they have a list, like step-by-step method of what you do with your money in order to build wealth. This is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do third, and you follow this process and you'll build wealth.
Yep.
And so the goal is to maximize your money, to really put it in the things that are going to make the most difference first, and then on and on and on until the end when you've built all your wealth, right?
That's right.
So, what is your step-by-step method to building wealth? What should I'm starting out, I have no idea what to do. I starting from zero. What should I do with my money? I don't know where to put it. I don't know where it goes. I've heard about retirements. I've heard about, stocks.
Yeah.
What do I do?
That's a common question. And people ask any CPA this or any certified financial analyst, anybody that knows anything about money, they get asked this question all the time. For the sake of just argument, we'll call this the S.E.A.N method.
The S.E.A.N method.
Super simple, very creative, right?
It is. Is it an acronym?
No, it is not an acronym. It's just called the S.E.A.N method because that's my name.
We should. I will come up with an acronym by the end of the episode.
You'll have plenty of time.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Well, let's get right into it. Step number 1 in the S.E.A.N method, build a budget. We did a whole episode on this. I know it's repetitive. I know this has been hitting you guys over the head, but the reason it's so important is because imagine you're driving a car and you have no idea where you're going and you have no idea how long it's going to take to get there. And even worse, you don't even know how much gas you have in the car. It's kind of a scary journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
We laid it out what a budget does. The reason I put it first is because I like to know where I'm going and what I'm trying to accomplish. And the budget is like a roadmap to doing that. It gives me a sense of where I'm going, what I'm doing, and what I'm trying to achieve long term. That's why I put the budget first. Thoughts on the budget?
Oh, I think that makes sense. What would you say to someone who, like, their budget doesn't balance? And by that I
Yeah.
mean they're spending more money than they're making. So in other words, their budget is negative. They're losing money every month.
Okay, so that happens with one of two reasons. Either you are spending way too much money and you have exuberant expenses, which means you probably are going to have to cut some cost. Or on the counterpart, you're only paying for the necessities and you're still not making ends meet. That's a tougher answer. So that means you either have to make hard choices and still try to cut that budget down, or on the counterpart, you're going to have to try and get another income source, make more money, which I know is not an easy thing to do, and that's a hard answer. But that's the simple answer of what he's saying is the budget is negative. It means you're either spending more than you're making, like he said, or you're not making enough to cover your expenses. And the simple answer is you're going to have to cut costs.
Yeah.
That's the immediate result to getting back to zero. Back to zero meaning your budget is equal. You're balanced. At the bottom is zero.
No, that's good. And so I think the budget makes sense. We've done a whole episode on it.
That's
We've
right.
talked about it. So I think there's a lot of different theories that we could go into of how much surplus should you have, what's a healthy amount of surplus on your budget. But at the end of the day, let's just say you've got your budget to balance. There is some surplus and some amount.
Let's work off that pretext.
What do I do next?
Great question. So hopefully you are clearing money in surplus and you just haven't known what to do with it yet. If you're in that boat, congratulations, you have a little bit of a shovel and we can move on. We can start talking about debt and investing and all the super fun stuff that gets us excited and should get you excited. Hopefully it does. But moving along in the S.E.A.N method, the next step would be, if you don't already do it, take the employer match. Why do we take the employer match, Skylar?
It's 100% rate of return. So,
say it again.
100% rate of return.
The most beautiful thing in the world. If you could say that again, it would not kill me.
So, 100% rate of return. The reason that is because an employer match is essentially you contribute money, so you get paid, you elect to put a certain amount of money into a retirement account. And your employer says, okay, up to X percent of your salary, we are going to match that and we are going to put money into your retirement
Dollar
account.
for dollar.
And so what that means is if I have, let's say I have a $50,000 salary and I contribute $2,000 into my 401k, that is 4%. Did I do that math right?
That's right.
Ah, good.
Look at you.
4% of your salary. Your employer match is 4%. So what they're going to say is, okay, I see your $2,000. I raise you an additional. No, it's not poker. I put in another $2,000 into that account. So then you have $4,000 in that account, but you only contributed $2,000. And that's over the course of the year, by the way. That's not like one you could do it in 1 month, but most likely it's every paycheck a couple bucks and it adds up to 2,000 and
Yep.
they're matching it too. And so in other words, that is 100% rate of return. You put in $2,000 and it immediately grew to $4,000. 100%.
100%. And that's before we even pick the investment options. You haven't put it in the S&P, you haven't put it in bonds or CDs. You haven't done anything with it. They just given you $2,000, which is why we say take the employer match. It is the only thing I know that is a guaranteed 100% rate of return every year you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful thing. All right.
So we've got our employer match.
Got
Just
the employer match.
caveat that could be in your 401k, could be in your HSA.
Right.
There's a lot of different places where your employer might match contributions. So it's up to you. I really encourage you get familiar with your company's benefits and take advantage of those. That's probably another tip all on its own, but especially when it comes to the match. Like know
Absolutely.
where you can put money and your employer will match that because that is free money that you're missing out on if you're not getting that match.
Absolutely. And it could be in, like he said, all different types of accounts. Some are after tax, some are before tax. The only thing you know about that is when you pay the taxes. So, for instance, Roth 401k, you're paying the taxes up front, and that means it grows tax free. In traditional 401k, you put the money in tax free at beginning, and then it grows tax, it grows. And then when you retire and you take withdrawals, it is taxed. That's the differences there. There are all different types of retirement accounts, guys. Learn about them, especially the health savings account, because I love that one the best as an accountant. It's a triple tax savings advantage account, my favorite.
Yeah, and we're gonna do an episode about all the tax accounts. So we're gonna. I promise we're gonna get to the retirement accounts. That is an exciting episode. But
Cool.
after we've gotten our employer match,
Moving along.
what's next?
What's next is okay. For those of you that have debt, which is the majority of the population, this is where you're going. You're building an immediate $3,500 emergency fund. And why it's $3,500 is because I said it and I like that number. There's not a lot of logic or rhyme or reason to this because it's not supposed to get you over everything, but it's just supposed to cover enough to keep you afloat. I had a flat tire. Okay, well maybe I need more than just one tire. I have to buy two, and that's above $1,000, which is Dave Ramsey's emergency fund number. Mine is supposed to cover just enough to keep you afloat, kind of like his, but it's a little bit adjusting for inflation. It's not a scientific thing. It's just to keep you going while you're paying off debt. The $3,500 will cover the majority of immediate, not large expenses. It'll cover just enough to get you a car and keep you going. I don't want people going backwards. That's why it's $3,500.
So do you think that $3,500 is a hard and fast rule, or is that just the Sean method? Like, how
That's
did
just the Sean
how
method.
did you arrive at $3,500?
Well, $3,500, I was thinking about it. Say your car breaks down and you need to buy a car because you need to go to work. Well, you might not be in town. You might be in a bad spot. But I do know that $3,500 can get you a car. It's not going to be a beautiful car. It's not going to be a Lexus, but it can get you a car, which will get you to work so that you can keep making money. It will cover a flat tire. It'll cover a windshield. In most cases, it'll cover most minor expenses that come up in everyday life that happens. Because whether you like it or not, life happens, and when it rains, it pours. So instead of just 1,000, I wanted to cover three $1,000 emergencies for you. And
Nice.
500 is maybe I'm tapped out and I can't buy food. That's what it's for. It's an emergency fund, not a retirement fund or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So I have my budget. I'm getting my employer match, and I've built up this Sean version of an emergency fund of $3,500
Yep.
in the Sean method. What's next?
If you had debt, like I said, which is why we had the $3,500 emergency fund to keep you afloat, I want you to start paying off that debt. I want you to stop worrying about the credit card bills. I want you to stop worrying about the bad interest rate loans you have. Anything above 7%, I want it gone. I want you to either refi or I want it gone because that 7% is working against you. And most investments don't do an average of 7%. Majority of them don't. The only one that beats it historically year over year is the S&P 500, which does about an average on 10. And that's a phenomenal investment. We'll talk about that later. But if debt is working against you, that means you're becoming more and more negative. And I want you out of that negative hole. I don't want you to stress at night. I want you to sleep like a baby and make money.
Yeah, it's excellent. So we did a debt episode, and I think it's been a while, obviously, sorry. But I do believe we said that the reason you pay off your high interest debt first is because, like you said, you can't invest and make more than that. So the
That's right.
interest you're paying the bank is penalizing you if you were to put it in a savings account or doing something. You're
That's
you're
right.
you're losing money, right? Because you're paying that interest bill every single
Yep.
month. That's less that you're putting towards the principal, less that you're investing, less that you're saving, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of that high interest debt,
That's
right?
right.
So okay, so and I'm going through so that people remember the Sean method because it's important.
Keep walking them.
This is the Sean method.
That's right. It
We
is
haven't
not a
thought of an
scientific
acronym
thing. It
yet.
is just my principles.
Okay, so we've got our budget.
That's right.
We've got our employer match.
Mm-hmm.
We have our $3,500 emergency fund.
Bingo.
Now we've paid off all of our high interest debt.
Oh, that's the beautiful
Which,
part.
just real quick, so we define you in the Sean method.
Sean method
You define high interest debt as
plus
7%.
7%.
So
Anything above
7% and
7,
above. So if my
7%.
mortgage is 6.9%, I leave it.
Right. And the mortgage is different. The more we talked about this on the debt episode, but a mortgage, by the way, guys, historical mortgage rate is 6%. That's the average over the entire time we've had mortgages. 6%, 6.9% may not be the best, but it ain't killing you. 7% above, some credit cards will give you 22%, and that's working against you every year. That's why I call that bad debt.
In the Sean method, is there a preferred way to pay down debt? Do you pay down highest interest first? Do you pay down the lowest amount first? Do you care in the Sean method? Do you just want to attack
Honestly,
the debt?
I don't care which way you go about it. You can do the avalanche method, which we talked about in our episode. We also talked about the snowball method. I don't care which one you pick. I just want you to do something. I want you to start attacking that debt like your life depends on it so that you can build for your future and you will thank yourself when you're 60 and you're retired later and you're enjoying life with your grandkids. Do something. Don't do nothing. Attack that debt, but be smart about it and go after it one at a time, like we talked about in the debt episode. Whether it's the high interest debt or it's the lowest payment first, I don't care. I want that debt gone. Pick one, target it, work your way down. It's a stepping stone, whether it's the avalanche or it's the snowball method. You're working at one piece at a time.
Nice. Okay. So we've got the budget, we've got our employer match, we have our $3,500 fund, and then we have paid off all of our high interest debt, anything above
Oh,
7%. So now what do? I
this
have
is the fun
all
part.
this money that I've been using to pay down debt. So where does it go now?
This is the fun part. So
I buy a
now,
Lamborghini.
if no, I'm not going to tell you to buy a Lamborghini. Now, Skylar, on the other hand, might tell you, you know what? Save up for that Lambo and drive fast, baby.
Maybe.
I'm not going to do that. And the Sean method, what I would like you to do is if you have enough money that you're building a solid surplus, at this point, I want you to do one of two things. I want you to either build up the 3 to 6 emergency fund, which you should be doing no matter what. And then on top
Three
of
to
that,
six.
3 to 6 month.
Okay. What does that mean?
Excellent question. Okay. The 3 to 6 month emergency fund is what we call the four walls, or it is your mortgage, your rent, all your utilities, gas, water, electric, all that jazz, internet, and then anything else you need to live. So if you have, let's say you have a cell phone bill, which you're probably going to need to make money, or you have to pay for gas, or you got to pay for food that month, which all of us, I believe, do. That goes into that hardcore expenses. This is your core expenses, and you need to multiply that number, those core expenses, what it costs you to live, by 3, or if you're a very cautious person, by 6. And you don't want to go over that because that means you're working with money that's not actually helping you. That's why it's only 3 to 6. Because as me and Skylar have laid out in the investing videos, cash is great in a savings account, but there are better ways to make it work for you. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, I don't mean to keep
No, no,
quizzing
no.
you.
This
I'm
is
just
fine.
trying to
Keep going.
extract all of the juice out of the Sean method. I'm
Let's wring the towel
squeezing
out.
it. All right. So in your plan, you're 3 to 6. How do I? What are some ways that because maybe I don't know. I'm like, well, am I conservative or am I more aggressive? Like, do I want 3 or do I want 6? How does one go about analyzing their situation and deciding, okay, do I need 3 or do I need 6 or do I need more? Like, what
Right.
what what do I do?
That's a fantastic question. So usually what I would say, and this is the Sean method. This isn't Skylar's idea. This is my personal ideas. If I have, say, a commission-based job where I'm sales, some months are great and I'm selling a bunch of houses or I'm selling a bunch of cars. I'm raking it in that month. Well, maybe I want to stash some of that away because maybe next month I don't sell as many cars. For instance, if I have a commodity-based job or a risk-based job where my paychecks are not stable, I'm not salary.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need that 6-month cushion because some months might be harder than others and I'm not balancing the budget. That's what that's for. It's to keep you in it's to keep you in check so you don't go into debt.
Got it.
So, but if you're salary, you should always have that 3 to 6 emergency fund, and then you're worried about other things like investing and making that money work for you. The
Mm-hmm.
salary job is way less risk, unless you work in some type of risky environment, which I'm
Yeah.
not going to get into that now, but you know what I mean. You know if your job is risky and or it's not, it's stable. I get a paycheck every month, it's the same amount.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll just add one thing that I think. I know it's
Go
the
ahead.
Sean method, but if you disagree, Sean, you can throw it out of your method because I don't wanna encroach.
I haven't heard this idea yet.
So I think you also can analyze if I were to lose my job because it's an emergency fund, right?
That's right.
So
Yep.
if something were to happen where I'm like, okay, I need to find a new job because either I got fired or I had quit or something happened, the company went under, whatever could happen, things can happen. Um, is my profession something that has high demand? Or is it something that it's going to take me a longer time to find a job? And so if I'm doing that, I'm
Great point.
analyzing like, oh, if it's going to take me more than 6 months to find a job if I get laid off, I might consider having a longer emergency
That's
fund.
exactly right.
Right, because you don't wanna have to go into debt because you lost your job, and then all of a sudden now, like, you can't
You're
cover
going
your expenses,
backwards.
you're going backwards, so and you guys can make that determination yourself. I do think it comes down to ultimately your appetite for risk, how risky you're willing to be, and also what profession you're in, right? 'Cause if you're I'm gonna throw some examples out there, and hopefully it doesn't offend anybody and I don't get my facts right, but my perception is nurses and medical field isn't really high demand right now.
Oh yeah.
So you can essentially get a job, maybe not in the field that you want. Maybe you're not the in the specific nursing, like you're not an OBGYN nurse, you're not like what you really want to be, but you can find another job fairly quickly and fairly easily versus like some very specialized PhD in nuclear physics loses his job. It's like, well, maybe he can't find a job as easy. I don't
Yeah.
know. But so I think that guy would maybe have a longer emergency fund than the nurse who pretty quickly, I think, could find another job.
That's exactly right. It's all about risk tolerance and knowing yourself and your field, really.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the Sean method. We've got the budget. We have our employer match. We have the $3,500 emergency fund. We've
Free
paid
from
off our
debt.
debt. Now we've built our 3 to 6 plus minus month emergency fund based on everything that we've just talked about.
Yep.
So now I have this emergency fund built up. I don't have any high interest debt. What do I do now?
Now's the fun part. Now is when you are building.
A Lamborghini.
That's the Skylar method, guys. If you're at that point, go ahead and start saving up for that Lambo. In the
Building,
Sean method, we're not doing that.
I said building a Lamborghini.
Again, that's the Skylar method, guys. If you think you can go build a Lamborghini, by all means, hell, put it on YouTube. Make a channel about it. Tell the story about how you got out of debt and built that Lambo, because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there are channels of people building Lambos, but I digress. That's what I
Okay, so
watch.
back to the point. Now that you're at this point, you're either going to do one or two things. So now that you have that emergency fund and you know that if you lost your job, you're covered for a minimum of 3 months, that gives you 90 days to find a new job, new source of income, build a new budget, keep on track. Now you're at the fun part. You're either saving up for a house down payment so you can lock in one of those key expenses, which is your rent's not going to change anymore because you have a mortgage, or now you're investing. And this is the best part. So now that you're investing, money is working for you at an exponential rate. Money is now going into an investment account, whether it's a Roth IRA or an individual brokerage. I want that money that is your surplus that you can afford every month to be invested in the S&P 500. If you have no idea what stocks are, you don't know where to begin, I want you to make a account on either Fidelity, Vanguard, wherever you bank at, and I want that surplus on your budget going into the 500. And the reason it's the 500 is because it is the best investment on average that typical investors use to make great returns. It averages 10% and it compounds every year. And for those of you that don't know, the 500 is the largest 500 companies in the United States. all included in one thing called an index fund. Instead of having to buy each individual one of those 500 stocks, it's a giant fund that buys those stocks for you and you invest in it.
Okay, excellent. So we've got our budget, we've got our employer match, we got blah blah blah, we've paid off our debt, we've got our emergency fund, and now we're investing in the 500.
That's right.
Do you care what account they're using? For example, you could have your tax advantaged
Great
accounts
question.
like your Roth IRA, but there's advantages and disadvantages, right? So in the Sean method, how do you determine what I put in my IRA, what I put in
Yep.
my individual brokerage? Do I max out my 401k? Like,
So
what's
this is
the,
again,
do
this
you
is
care?
I do, and that's a good question. And this is really nuanced. And again, this is not a scientific number, guys. This is just what I think. If your take home pay is above, I'm going to call it 100,000. If your take home pay, that means after tax pay, what you're bringing in every year is above 100,000. I would prefer to see you put that money in your HSA and your Roth IRA before you do an individual brokerage. And the reason is because those are tax advantage accounts, like Skylar was talking about. You pay the taxes up front, and that money grows tax free. I want to see you max that out. Look at your individual limit, or if you're a family, look at your family limit. And I want that money put in there every month. Divide whatever that contribution amount is, divide it by 12, and that's how much money needs to go in those accounts every month into the S&P 500, and watch it grow. Just watch it.
Okay, so let's say you're a high earner, you've maxed out your Roth IRA. Would you max that out first, you think?
I would do the Roth IRA and then I would do the HSA. The Roth IRA, the reason I would do that first is because you're going to have to pay taxes one way or another. The
Hmm.
HSA, you can benefit from that if you're, this is a, I should have walked this out earlier. The HSA is better if you can get it off of your gross paycheck first. If you're putting money into the HSA that you've already paid taxes on, you kind of miss one of the triple tax savings advantages. Because if you think about it, you can contribute to an HSA from your paycheck, which, by the way, at the top point hasn't paid taxes yet. You can then take that money gross out of your paycheck, put it into the HSA, and spend it tax free later. You'll have to pay sales tax when you buy the pharmaceutical and medical drugs, but it's growing tax free for you if you don't touch it.
How do you qualify for an HSA? Can everyone get one?
I believe. Okay, so I don't know the specifics on this, and you'll have to look up the
I
legalities.
do.
Okay, great. Tell them. I
Okay.
don't want to say something wrong.
In order to get an HSA, you need a high deductible insurance plan
Oh,
that
yes.
has an HSA. So
Yes.
there is, unless you're self-employed, which to Sean's point, I don't know all the details of that, but if you are employed by someone, the benefits, the HR department knows whether or not they offer a plan that qualifies for an HSA because it's included in your health insurance plan provided by your company, or you can get one that allows for an HSA. You
Yep.
can pay for one yourself, but it's a high deductible health plan. So real quick, what that means is your deductible is a lot higher. So in theory, you're going to pay a lot more out of pocket. It's generally recommended for a younger, healthier person that's going to have less medical expenses
Yes.
because the premiums are lower. So what you pay every single month to have insurance is a lower amount. But if something were to happen, you're going to pay more money until you hit that deductible, which means the insurance then covers the rest of the expense.
That's
So
right.
it's a risky thing if you're an older person and you have a lot of medical expenses, you're probably not going to want a high deductible health plan. But if you're younger and it offers an HSA, it is, to Sean's point, a phenomenal way for you to funnel money into it.
Yes. And back to the whole point of why I would do the Roth first. Like I said earlier, the triple tax saving advantage when it comes right off the paycheck and you haven't paid taxes on the money. If you're putting money that you've already gotten taxed on into that account, you're negating 1/3 of the benefit of it. So instead of that, I would do that after my Roth, and then I would do the HSA.
Hmm.
And then if you have maxed out both of those, congratulations, you're in a phenomenal spot. Now's when you're going to open up that individual brokerage. And an individual brokerage, my friends, there's no contribution limit. You can put whatever you want in there. You might have to find separate banks because you might be too high for their quota if you're at that point, but there's no limit. You can put whatever you want in there, however much, and put it in whatever you want. I recommend the 500 because it does not take an active investor to contribute.
Okay, so we've got Roth IRA first,
Correct.
your HSA if you
Correct.
qualify, if that's an option for
If
you.
if not,
Um,
go straight to the individual brokerage.
Individual brokerage, where does your 401k, because you're already getting your match,
Right.
your company match in your 401k,
This is a
where
good
does that
point.
come in?
That's a great point. So let's actually talk about that before the Roth. So if you are making enough money to be doing what I'm talking about, your take home income is above 100,000.
So
I
what are the limits on those? So like what the
the
IRA
Roth
limit,
the Roth IRA. Okay, so
the
I
IRA, it's traditional and Roth, it's the same limit,
yes,
right?
so I believe it's 27,500
It's $7,000 a year for an
for
individual.
the Roth.
For an
Yeah,
IRA. Yeah.
yeah, for the IRA, not the 401k.
Right.
The
Right.
Roth 401k is different.
Right. Right.
We're throwing a lot of things out there that they may not know what we're talking about. Okay, so the Roth IRA is it's different than your 401k. The 401k is usually a provided benefit by an employer. If you are making enough money to where you're bringing in 100,000 after taxes, I want you to be using a Roth 401k, not a traditional, simply because I want that money to grow tax free. And you can contribute more money into that and pay the taxes now instead of later. The reason in the logic of paying the taxes upfront now is because I don't think either one of us think that tax rates are going to go down in the future. If anything, I think they're going to go up, which is
Mm-hmm.
my personal thought. So instead of paying more later, I'm going to pay less now and have the money grow at the same rate,
Tax free.
tax free.
Right.
That's why. That's the logic.
Excellent. Okay. So we've got the budget. We've got your, what was next after the budget?
Match.
We've got the match, the employer match into the 401k. Then we're pivoting into the $3,500. And then we paid off all our debt. And then now we have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're funneling money back into your 401k or you're funneling it into the Roth IRA.
You can start with, I would start with a 401k, do the Roth. If you make that 100,000, if not, if you can't swing that, don't do it. Go to the Roth
Okay. So
and
your
then go to
Roth
the HSA.
IRA.
Roth IRA. That's
Okay.
correct.
So to be clear, there's some separate accounts. The 401k, the current contribution limit for an individual is $23,000 per year. The Roth IRA, the current contribution limit for an individual is $7,000 a year. And then the HSA, I believe, is somewhere
It's like 4,250, right?
something like, yeah, I think that's right. And then the family limit is
Yeah.
$8,300 a
It
year.
it pays to be married, guys. I'm just saying because the contribution limits are higher on all these accounts.
Yeah. So to that point, are you maxing out your 401k
Oh yeah.
first? Okay, so the first thing you do once you've got your uh 3 to 6 month emergency fund, I blanked there for a
It's
second.
all right.
You've got your 3 to 6 month emergency fund. You're going back and you're maxing out your 401k.
Yes.
As much money as you can.
As you can get in there, yes.
Okay.
And the reason for that is the same reason you put money into the Roth IRA. Something caveat we should probably mention about these accounts. What you put in there, the earnings on these accounts, and also the contributions for a 401k, you cannot touch or take out without heavy, heavy penalty until you're 59 and a half.
Mm,
That is the caveat of these. The Roth IRA is slightly different. So the Roth IRA, you are allowed to take out your contributions, but you cannot take out the earnings without heavy tax penalty.
mm. Okay, that makes
Key
sense.
caveat.
Yeah. So we're maxing out our 401k, putting money in our Roth. Maybe there's a mixture there,
Yeah,
sounds like, depending on whether you think you might need some of that money sooner,
correct.
right? Okay. And then we're going to our
HSA,
HSA if it's available to us,
then
and
individual
then
brokerage.
individual brokerage.
Yep.
Okay. So what next?
So once you're doing that,
And
you're
to be clear, you're investing in the S&P 500 in
all
every
these,
single
every
one
one
of
of these.
these accounts.
And again, the reasoning is simple. The S&P 500 is the only fund that I know of that has historically, and it's been around for a long, long time, done 10%. I don't agree with Dave Ramsey's method of doing growth stock mutual funds and low cap and small cap index. I don't agree with that for a lot of reasons, but the Money Guys actually have an episode on this. They showed his fund in probably the best possible mutual funds that you could get in that ideology, and it still didn't beat the 500.
Mm.
The 500, as Warren Buffett has said, is the best fund to invest for any amateur investor because even the people that beat it one year, they don't beat it the next year 96% of the time.
Yeah.
It's the best fund for amateurs. I don't care what you say.
Guys, if you've got some financial guru, a day trader or whatever, ask them if their trades beat the 500 last year. And then if they say yes, number one, call BS. But then number two, maybe it's true. Maybe they show you the printout. Ask them if they're on track to beat it this year, or
Most of
ask
them
them
aren't.
if they beat it the year before. Because most people cannot consistently beat the S&P 500 because if they can, they're not working anymore. They're on a beach somewhere.
That's correct. If you are beating the 500 year over year, you are not working a regular job. You're talking with high net worth individuals and talking to them about funds and taking expense ratios, and you're trading stocks and sitting on a beach.
Yeah. So we think for an amateur investor, which I would classify myself as an amateur investor. I would probably classify most of you as amateur investors. The S&P 500 is the best.
Yeah,
Is that right? That's the
that's
Sean
right.
method.
Yeah, and then once you're doing all that, guys, live what you want. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it at that point. I want you to be covered. I want the old wolf in you to be happy that the young wolf was smart, got out of debt, started investing, and took care of himself later because there will be an older you. I'm 25 and I'm already thinking about the 60-year-old me.
That's excellent. Yeah, I like that. So you're
Let's
basically you're
yeah,
paying yourself. You
you're
can think
paying
of it
your
as you're paying yourself in the future,
you are. You're
right?
building yourself a future. What do you think about all this? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a really good method. I think there's some caveats that we could get into maybe in a longer episode about when to decide which accounts to put it into. But I think overall, it's a really good method.
Great.
I like the Sean method. I haven't thought of an acronym yet, though. It's really I've
Yeah.
been a little bit distracted
Yeah.
trying to think of an acronym. I was like, Sean's excellent, awesome method, but I mean, I don't know. That's a little childish, but there we go. I'll throw it out there.
Sean's excellent, awesome method with no debt.
Sean's excellent accounting method.
For those of you that don't know, I'm an accountant, which gets us into the next part.
Yes. So, Sean, we've had quite the pause in our
Yes, we have.
accounting, in it or our accounting.
I have had quite the pause in my accounting.
Uh, that's also true in our podcasting,
Yep.
and it's been tough. And we know you guys have been on the edge of your seats, just waiting for the next episode. And probably by now you're thinking it's not coming. So, Sean, what is going on, man?
Before I say anything else, I always want to say thank you to Skylar. This is probably going to be my last episode, guys. Skylar's actually the one that made all of this happen. Skylar's the one that bought the equipment, set it all up, and let me live out my dream. Me and Skylar met at the gym, and we just started talking about these ideas of maybe we should start a YouTube channel. We could talk about all sorts of stuff, right? Here we are. This is all because of him, and I want to thank you.
Well, it was fun. I mean, come on. Look at what we've built together. It's been fun, and we had fun together. So it
I
was a good
hope we
time.
did.
But what's going on with you, man? You've got some exciting things
I
happening in
do.
your life,
I
and
do.
I wanted to give you this opportunity to share with our lovely viewers who have been on the edge of their seats, wondering what's going on. The exciting things that are happening in your life. Why are you leaving, man? Why are you leaving me high and dry?
There are two core reasons, my friend, and you know both of them. Number one,
They don't know.
I know, I'm telling them.
Okay, I'm
I'm
sorry.
telling them.
I'll stop interrupting you. I just don't want you to say it, but okay, go ahead.
I recently just had a child. It's my firstborn. I had a son. Me and my wife are incredibly happy. It's also a massive time commitment, which was the main reason we haven't been able to do these. I've just become a parent recently. It's been a lot of time strain. And it's not Skylar's fault. It's got nothing to do with him. It's solely because of me.
And that's awesome, guys. I mean, you should see how happy he is. He is living his dream. And that is what Money Maximize is all about. It is about no matter what someone else thinks, no matter what you guys think of Sean leaving, I totally support him because this is what brings him value. This is what brings him joy, is spending time with his kid. And I told him, I was like, look, man, that is so much more important than sitting here and recording these episodes because that's your legacy. I mean, it's so awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Every day when I wake up and see that kid, I realize the true meaning of life.
It is. Yeah.
It's that important to me.
And
And he's right.
that's phenomenal. I mean, so look at Sean. He is exemplifying what it means to be a money maximizer.
That I will say this, the fact that I live the way I do made this totally seamless. I wasn't worried about it. In fact, I'm also changing jobs and I didn't have to worry about not missing out on a paycheck because I'm covered.
He's got his emergency fund.
I've
He's
got
in
my
the Sean
emergency
method.
fund. I'm in it.
He's living it, guys. This is not something he sat down, he wrote it on a piece of paper. This is what has worked for Sean thus
And
far in his life.
instead of the medical bills being a nightmare and me not knowing how I'm going to cover it, I can sleep easy at night because I've got that money. Whatever it takes to make my kid healthy and happy, done. Say less.
Because of
Money, kid is worth way more than any amount of money. You could burn all the money I have. That kid means more to me than anything else.
Sean's excellent accounting method.
That's right, because of Sean's excellent accounting method.
All right. So anything else going on?
That's okay.
I mean,
Point number two.
Hold on. We've covered 3 or 4 points here. You've
Okay.
had a busy couple of weeks.
I have.
You had a baby.
I did.
He's very cute, by the way. Luckily, he looks like his mom. You have.
Just kidding. He's being facetious there.
I'm not. Changed jobs.
I have. I did.
You've changed jobs. Anything else?
There's one more thing. I am an accountant, guys, and I'm taking that final step. I just got my MBA a couple months ago. I've decided I want to be a CPA and I need time to study. For those of you that don't know, the CPA is a certified public accountant. I will be a licensed fiduciary and able to give tax and investment advice. It is a massive milestone and the final gem or key point that I can stack on that resume to say, I know what the hell I'm doing. And that takes a massive amount of time to
He
study.
can say he knows what the hell he's doing. It doesn't necessarily mean he does, just to be clear.
Thank you, Skyler.
Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Mr. PE over here.
All right, so we've got those three things. Really sad to see Sean go. I'm really not sure what this podcast is gonna be without Sean. He's really kind of the excitement behind it. It might be super dry if I try to continue it, but
Wow.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. But regardless, you're not gonna see Sean's face very much often. We'll see if
It was
maybe
fun.
we can't convince him to come back for a couple of guest episodes here once everything calms down. What do you say?
I would love to be back.
We'll have to throw we probably should be doing this a disclaimer, not financial advice because we're not CPAs,
I'm
right?
not a CPA yet. I cannot say this is certified financial advice from a financial fiduciary.
And we might still want to do that for legal reasons, even
That's
once you
right.
are.
CYA, baby.
All right, so here we go. This is it. We hope you guys had fun. This is Money Maximizers Podcast. Sean, you want to send us off?
You know what to do, guys. Subscribe and share in the comment section. It's been fun. Money Maximizers out.